All right, guys. Well, thank you for attending, and thank you for our panelists for being a part of this. Before we kick things off, if you guys are joining us, I just want you to know that you're on mute. So if you do have any questions that come up while we're going through our conversations, please put those in the chat box, and we'll get to those at the end of the event. Now, let's go ahead and get things started. Welcome to NTX Inno's first virtual State of Innovation event with our host, Thomson Reuters. Today, we're going to be diving into two of the startups in North Texas that have been pivoting their business because of COVID-19. Before we get to that, if anyone's unfamiliar with Inno and what we do, we're part of a growing network of sites. We're currently in 14 markets and soon to be 15. We're committed to covering and connecting local technology, startups, growth, and innovation communities. Through our daily email newsletter, stories, monthly events, which obviously are virtual for right now, directories, data, and more, NTX Inno is building a portal for the region's startup and tech communities. You can check us out at ntxinno.com to see what we're all about and sign up for our daily newsletter, The Beat. It's really the best way to stay plugged in to all the startup news that you need, the analysis that you won't really find anywhere else, and then info on upcoming events and cool job openings, all in a pretty fun conversational manner as we've got right now. So before we introduce our panelists, again, I want to give a quick shout out to Thomson Reuters, who's presenting this event. Thomson Reuters has been helping small businesses through the coronavirus crisis. And to talk a little bit more about that, we'll have Amy Egan, General Manager of Small and Mid-Market Corporations, joining us before we kick off the panel discussion. She'll be addressing what Thomson Reuters is doing. But if you want to check out more about that, if you look at our handout section, we have a link to their Small Business Relief Center. So be sure to check that out. We also have links to the bios of our panelists and some more information on there. So feel free to click around. Also, before we get started again, I would be remiss if we didn't mention our other founding sponsors who've also been helping out with small businesses in the community during the pandemic. First, we got BDO. BDO is bringing change and working to help small businesses and you persevere through the current health crisis, prepare for recovery, and once again thrive. We also had Accenture. With every industry, function, and geography affected, the amount of potential change to think through can be daunting, and Accenture is trying to help with that. They've created a guide that can help you find expert perspectives from our leaders that have insight paired with tangible actions on your organization can take and turn massive complexity into meaningful change. And last but not least, we also have UTD. University of Texas at Dallas computer science professors have been working on a new software that will allow researchers to collect medical information about COVID-19 patients while protecting their identity and helping the community out. If you want to learn more about what they've been doing, we've got links in our welcome address, so be sure to check those out. Now, without further ado, let me kick it off to Amy Egan, who's going to be giving our keynote on what Thomson Reuters has been doing to help small businesses. Amy, if you want to take it away.
Great, thank you, Kevin. So thank you, Kevin, and thank you, the North Texas Inno, for having us. Thomson Reuters is absolutely thrilled to partner with you, and not only on this webinar, but across the board. I think the work that you're doing is really exciting. I'm actually really excited to be here to listen to the stories myself. It's one of my favorite things about my role at Thomson Reuters is that I get to spend a lot of time talking with small and mid-sized businesses. That role is challenging at times right now, and as always, but especially right now, I think the conversations I have vary from pure survival to incredible stories of innovation and creativity and resilience, and kind of run the gamut. Just to really briefly, I would say Thomson Reuters has a relatively new to having a focused team, the team that I lead on small and medium businesses. It's kind of a funny thing when you're at a dinner party, or when we used to be at dinner parties, and you're talking to someone and explaining, what you do. And in my case, working with small businesses, and I work for Thomson Reuters, and I often get sort of a look. And typically people say, "Oh, Thomson Reuters. Now, what do you do with small businesses? And they oftentimes insert the one thing that they may know about Thomson Reuters, that if they are familiar with the legal industry, they might say, wait, I thought you worked with lawyers, or, oh, I thought you worked with the news. And that's really common. The reality is we actually work across professional industries and the news, and we actually have such a diverse set of services and solutions that we made a decision, a strategic decision about 4 years ago to isolate a part of our business to really focus on the needs of small and medium companies. And in some cases, those needs don't differ dramatically from the needs of larger organizations or law firms or accounting firms, but in a lot of cases they really do. And I think we're in a place right now where we're seeing the unique differences of what it takes to navigate the landscape as a smaller business, and we're stepping up to make sure that we're supporting our customers and just the overall ecosystem of small and medium businesses across the board. So just a couple of tidbits about what we're doing. Kevin mentioned the Small Business Resource Center, and that is a resource center that we created really in response to the COVID-19 impacts, but particularly as it relates to, we were hearing just a large influx of feedback from our customers and from partners and associations that work with small and medium businesses like this one, and really saying, boy, there's so much information out there about surviving and thriving during this time, whether it be resources around economic stimulus or resources around risk and compliance, et cetera. So what we did is we said, we have a unique opportunity as Thomson Reuters with the credible, trusted voice that we have, the ability to cut through a lot of noise and a lot of information. I mean, one of the biggest challenges I hear is, I'm a small business, I'm trying to survive right now. I really can't consume the amount of information that's out there and figure out what's relevant to me and what matters to me right now. And that's something that Thomson Reuters specializes in, is really cutting through that and getting the most relevant information and trusted information in front of customers and in front of those that consume our news and other pieces of information. And we do it really quickly. So what we did is we came together and we built a resource center for our small and medium businesses that focuses heavily on navigating choices around economic stimulus loans and grants, navigating unique challenges that come up when you're needing to pivot to survive. And that's very much in the space we're talking about today. So I encourage everyone to take a look at that site if you have a chance. And I think you'll find that it brings together a number of different pieces of resource. It's a free resource. All of the material there is made available to the market, just because we think it's absolutely critical, and I think it goes without saying, hopefully it goes without saying, the survival and the ability for small businesses to thrive and to continue to innovate during this time is absolutely paramount, and we believe that. I think the thing that I would say in addition to that I'm hearing a lot is, as we think about these pivots in our business models, one of the things I'll tell you a quick story, which I think we'll hear way more from our panelists themselves, so I don't want to take up too much of their time, but I was talking to a customer yesterday, and this customer is in what referred to as like fitness services, fitness activation, wellness activation. So their typical business model is working with companies and working with both their employees, as well as working with them on events and that kind of thing. And previous to COVID, they would go into companies to do like workout classes. They would go to events and offer, workout, yoga, wellness activities during the events. A really cool company. And of course, as soon as COVID shutdown started to hit, their business dramatically impacted. So immediately they started to have to think about survival, navigating what resources were available to them from a financial survival perspective, whether it be the PPP or some economic disaster, tapping into other lines of credit, et cetera, to survive. And then working with their team to decide, okay, how do we pivot? long story short, they pivoted into a really cool virtual model where they're able to offer similar solutions to their existing customers and to new customers virtually, keep their employees engaged in wellness and fitness activities while they're at home. And now, as some companies are starting to have some people going back to work or going back to work on limited basis, they're kind of able to bridge that gap of both virtual and in person. However, with those challenges with those opportunities and those pivots comes challenges. So when I was talking to him yesterday, I was asking, like, what are the things that you've really had to think about as you've made this pivot? And it's so it was really eye-opening to me, the number of things that have changed. Just a couple that I think are really worth pointing out as we're thinking about this in a collective discussion. Like, sharing employees' roles and responsibilities had to dramatically change overnight. What are the HR implications of that? What are the risks associated with that? And how do you navigate that as a small company? You don't necessarily have an HR team on staff, et cetera. New tax liabilities associated with the different sales and delivery models. They shifted a lot to an e-commerce delivery. They're delivering capabilities more broadly than their local markets. What kind of tax implications associate with that? Need to figure that out. And then virtual privacy requirements was another one that came up. So as you're looking at, privacy requirements with their customers' employees, with their customers' customers, as they're delivering these services. So just a few samples of things that definitely hearing, and these are things that, if I go back full circle to sort of what is Thomson Reuters bringing to the small and medium market, we can actually help with every single one of those issues that arose. And I was able to help them understand where they need to go to get some of those answers. And so I would just encourage you to, as you're going through the pivot, as you can take a breath, think about those things that you have to kind of be in front of, so that both the pivot ends up being actually one that drives growth, sustainable growth for the future. That's what we're here to enable. We don't want to be sort of scaring people about risk. We really want to be about your growth story. And so that's really our goal overall. As I said, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin and the panelists, because I'm super excited to hear the stories of pivots and innovation from the panelists. And I just want to, again, thank you for having Thomson Reuters and allowing me to share a little bit about what we're doing today, and look forward to continuing to work with all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I actually had a chance to look through it. It is pretty helpful. And for those of you guys tuning in, remember their Small Business COVID-19 Resource Center is on our handout section. So be sure to check that out. I mean, I think pretty much every business, large and small right now, is trying to figure things out. So, but we're about to hear from two of them. So I guess without further ado, let me introduce our panelists. First up, we have Andy Chen, who is the Senior Vice President of Plus One Labs, which is inside of Match Group. He is also the Product and Development Lead at Ship, which, for those of you who don't know, Ship is a dating app that's seen some fairly interesting trends, as I'm sure some of the other ones with Match Group have seen during the pandemic. We'll get to that, though. We also have Merrilee, who is the CEO of BuzzBallz. And if you guys are unfamiliar with that, they are those brightly colored orbs that are lining the aisles of the booze section at your store, but they've also been doing a little bit more than providing some liquid comfort during these times. But again, we will get into all of that. So before we start off our panel discussion, I wanted to kick it over to you guys just to kind of briefly explain who you are and kind of what your companies do before all this kind of started. So Andy, let me kick it off to you.
Cool. Thanks, Kevin, for the introduction. So a little bit about me. Before I joined Match, I was actually a startup founder as well. I actually started my company, co-founded it with a good friend of mine. It's called Traxo. We started it in Dallas, and we started it during the last recession. And I guess to all of you startup folks out there, I would just say, half the S&P 500 was started during a recession. During the last recession, 50 unicorns or billion-dollar companies were started. So hang in there. I know it's hard. We pivoted over and over and over during the last recession, and we finally ended up raising venture capital from an Austin-based and a West Coast-based VC. So I know it's hard right now, but there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel. So for those of you guys who don't know what Match Group is, we are a global dating app company. You probably know a number of our brands. Match is probably the OG internet dating company out there, started in 1995. We recently IPO'd, and we are now one of the top 20 largest publicly traded companies in Texas. And I think we're like top 10 non-energy in terms of public sized company in terms of publicly traded companies in Dallas. We have offices all over the world, and we operate about 45 different brands globally. Match is one of them. Tinder is another one. Tinder is the highest grossing app in the App Store. That is not a game. And we have other ones: Hinge, OkCupid, Plenty of Fish, among others. I run a team at Match Group called Plus One Labs, and we're basically an innovation group that is focused on building and testing and launching new dating apps and social products. Like Kevin mentioned, we recently launched an app last year called Ship, and Ship is built on the insight that dating in real life is not something you do by yourself. And so we've created an experience that bring your friends along with you, so your friends can now match on your behalf, and we've created this really fun experience that allows you to chat and share your dating experience with your close friends and family.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll definitely talk a little bit more about that. Merrilee, let me hand it off to you.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Kevin. Hi, Andy. I'm Merrilee Kick. I'm the CEO and founder of BuzzBallz Southern Champion. It's located in the Carrollton area outside of Dallas. We're a manufacturer of ready-to-drink cocktails, and we make things called BuzzBallz. They're little round cocktails, little ready-to-drink cocktails. And we sell those in 45 states and 21 countries. And we've become the #1 ready-to-drink cocktail single-serve size in America. So in 10 years, we've grown this company from nothing to this. It's a very innovative company. We do all of our products ourselves. We create the plastic containers. We make them biodegradable. We do the manufacturing and all the prep, and then all of the production and shipping, and send it out to our distributors.
Awesome. Yeah, I think my favorite is the coffee one.
Okay, good.
But I mean, that's kind of my main drink no matter what anyway. So, I mean, yeah, let's dive into this thing then. I guess to kind of start off, before this whole pandemic thing, what kind of projects did you guys have in the pipeline for 2020? I'm kind of curious, before all this started, what were you guys kind of looking at in a normal kind of year? And I guess we'll just kind of go in order. So Andy, if you want to take that one first.
Yeah, I think I'll answer that question from two perspectives. We obviously have, an entire portfolio of dating apps, and then my team specifically, one of the primary projects we're working on is Ship, which is the app I mentioned earlier. And from a Match Group perspective, online dating up until COVID, the experience was primarily what we call asynchronous. So basically, you can interact with other people, and you didn't have to do it at the same time. And so a lot of our thinking was around how do we build the best asynchronous experience. And I might be jumping ahead here, but that obviously changed during COVID, because when people went into lockdown, when people went into quarantine, we really started thinking about how do you allow single people who during COVID they're arguably probably the loneliest people out there. And how do you create live experiences for our members to have that felt like the closest thing to in real life? And so how that translated, how that kind of paradigm translated to Ship, we were really thinking pre-COVID about a lot of ways for friends to interact with potential matches on your behalf. So allowing friends to help you update your profile, allowing friends to communicate on your behalf, allowing friends to help you select photos. And obviously coming into COVID and rethinking our product plan, we started then more thinking about ideas that were more synchronous in nature that you could have with your friends, which we can get into later.
Yeah, we definitely will. And you guys, Match is about to spin off from, is it AIE is the company, right?
IAC Interactive Corp. Yeah, we are publicly traded
that's
already.
Still going ahead, right?
Yeah, we're publicly traded in the NASDAQ, but IAC owns 80% of our shares. And I think we have a board meeting in a couple of weeks where we're pretty sure that will be ratified and we'll be 100% an independent company.
Nice. And Merrilee, I mean, again, kind of looking at 2020 coming into it before, this whole COVID-19 thing, what were some of the things that you guys were looking at in terms of like either projects or plans for growth?
Well, everything that we planned to do started out in January where we were going to go to Asia. We had like a 5-country trip that we were going to visit international distributors. That stopped as COVID started. And we just kind of put that on hold. Same thing with some of our private label products that we were going to make for 7-Eleven and HEB and some of those major retailers. We put some of those, we pushed those back by a few months just because of the uncertainty of what was going to happen. And then the other thing was just, hunker down and focus on our core business. We pivoted into hand sanitizer, which was something we weren't planning on doing, but the government gave us permission to make it, so we did. And we can go into that later. But basically everything we wanted to do, we are doing. We never shut down, so we stayed going. We still had a full plant production going, so we're just here every day.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to talk about some of the pivots, and I guess thank goodness for Texas keeping the alcohol an essential business here. So yeah, I mean, I guess let's get to kind of the disruptions and some of the pivots that you guys have made. And I have some specific questions for each of you guys, but I guess just kind of to start off as a whole, so COVID-19, you start hearing the news of it spreading, and then kind of February, March, it really becomes a big deal in the US as it hits and kind of starts spreading here. So I guess like kind of around that time, what were your thoughts and kind of how did you start preparing for that? And I guess, again, we can just start with Andy, you.
Yeah, it was, we have the benefit of being a global company, and we have offices in Tokyo, we have offices in Singapore, and we kind of got a bit of a playbook from that geography. Like they were, I think, much more aware and conscious of potentially what the impact could be. And so a lot of at least our plans around how we wanted to make sure we kept our employees safe and that we maintained continuity in our business. A lot of it came from best practices that our teams in Asia brought to us. So we already started thinking about that, or our leadership team was really starting to think about that. The way I think about COVID and the impact on the business is, quite honestly, it was less about like fundamental disruption and more about an acceleration of disruption that was already happening or that was already taking place in our industry, right? Like this whole idea that you can have a meaningful connection online. I think we proved in COVID that we're getting really darn good at it. I mean, this video conference is a perfect example of that. And that translates similarly in our space. And so it really just accelerated a lot of our thinking, and we made a lot of preparations around how are we going to enable our users to have experiences, live synchronous experiences utilizing technology. And that's kind of what we've been doing a lot across the brands, including with Ship. We've been thinking about ways to use technology to recreate live experiences.
Yeah, and again, we'll totally dig into some of the specifics that you guys have been doing. Merrilee, obviously you guys are kind of slightly different, not necessarily in the technology space, but kind of again, kind of around the time that coronavirus started becoming a big deal in the US, kind of what were you looking at? And I know you guys kind of pivoted some of the business production that you guys do. So I guess kind of what were some of your thoughts kind of leading up to that?
Well, I was terrified. I was worried that we were going to have to shut down. And I didn't know whether alcohol was going to be an essential business or not. Luckily, the TTP, which is the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, Tax and Trade, said that we could make hand sanitizer. So we did. And within one day, we overcame all the stuff that we had to do to buy the ingredients and get it going. And that first Saturday, we started making hand sanitizer within 24 hours. In the end, we pivoted and made 18,000 gallons of hand sanitizer and packaged it and gave it away for free to all the first liners, hospitals, SWAT, police, labs, the AFES group, which is the military, the Coast Guard, the Federal Reserve Bank, everybody that was working there. And then also a lot of the grocery stores, that had first line people standing in, working as a clerk at the register or stocking shelves. So those are some of the things we did. But my biggest fear was, even though we're not shutting down and still producing, because people are pantry loading, they are trying to buy as much booze or buy as much food and stock their pantries. That was one of our biggest months ever, was March. But because everybody was shutting down and laying people off and doing that, our distributors who buy from us started bleeding their inventory and holding less inventory. So that hurt us in April. But during that whole time, my biggest concern was my people. How do I get PPE for my people? There wasn't any PPE available. So I was talking to China and all my friends over there. How do I get masks? How do I get thermometer guns? How do I get best practices from them as well, like Andy did? And, we just did we had started a COVID task force where we, required thermometer checks on everybody coming in the door, social distancing, the mandatory hand washing every hour. We have a cook on staff that cooks for everybody, so we changed the way we did our meals. We gave everybody a free tank of gas. We gave them bonuses. We gave them hazard pay to stay on board. We bought 50,000 masks from China, had those air shipped over. We got with Care Now and got free testing for our team. So, just a lot of things we had to pivot to do to make that hand sanitizer, or to also just stay in production in general. But that's what we're doing. We're just keep swimming, just keep going. Sorry about the people. I don't know where that's coming from.
Oh, you're fine. I can still hear you pretty well. I guess just keeping it on that for a second. I'm not super familiar with like the production of either alcohol or hand sanitizer. So I guess like you guys seem to have pivoted pretty quickly. So I guess like, was that like a difficult switch? And then I guess just like kind of going off of that, selling alcohol is kind of your core business. So how did you kind of think about balancing that, making hand sanitizer with kind of your normal business production?
It was stressful, not scary, just stressful. Just figuring out how to do it, getting the math right, doing it exactly right. And then we had to deliver it to all of the different places, the hospitals, and driving around and making sure that we had the right transportation board certificates on our trucks, because it's high proof alcohol. So, I think that it was just a really interesting experiment. We did it. We did 18,000 gallons, and then we called it quits after that. So we figured that either COVID's going to spike and they're going to need it again, or we're done. And so we just focused on our core business after that.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously 18,000 gallons is quite a bit. So, and kind of, going off of that question, Andy, you guys kind of work more in like the tech sphere. So I guess like, how has kind of your daily functioning kind of been affected by the pandemic?
Yeah, Quite honestly, from an operational standpoint, we were pretty well prepared to move into a remote working environment. So we started shutting down offices across the United States in late February, early March. And we shut down the Dallas office March 17th. And we've been closed since. Fortunately for us, since we are all digital workers, we spend most of our time in front of computers and Slack and Zoom. And so it was more around ensuring that we had our management team provide the right business processes and best practices, and make sure our employees at home were properly equipped. So, we actually gave people a $500 budget to go buy anything that they needed to work from home, whether it was a keyboard, a headset, or an office chair or a standing desk. We actually increased that to $1,000 since, because we are planning for potentially a more protracted work from home situation. So that's what we did on the employee side. And then, we had to take a look a lot. At first, we weren't sure how COVID was going to impact our business. We were fortunate that we actually saw record engagement in our products. And so, Tinder literally had one of, record levels of traffic. Match saw double-digit increases in messages being sent specifically for females. We saw that actually this whole kind of lockdown environment actually played more to the way that females want to date. And so, they'd rather have a slow and steady, protracted kind of courtship period online, and they didn't feel the pressure to have to just rush and go on a date. And so we saw record female engagement. In fact, it's so strong that we're trying to figure out how we can continue this and build our products so that play more to the way that females want to date and have courtship online. And so, we had to reevaluate marketing budget. Fortunately for us, the way that we spend marketing dollars, we were able to kind of dial down and now dial back up very quickly. And then obviously product plans and roadmaps got reprioritized based on COVID. And each brand kind of did their own different thing to kind of lean into the dynamics that were changing in the dating scene across the markets that they operate in. Kevin, you're on mute.
Yep, sorry. Going off of that, dating is like a personal thing. People tend to, go on dates. So I guess as a whole, how do you guys kind of see that responsibility of, bringing people together, but also physically keeping them apart? And I guess going off of that, and I don't know how you want to answer this, maybe with Match or Ship, but kind of how are some of the new features that you're rolling out tie into that?
Yeah, it's something we thought a lot about because we felt like, online dating is the number one way people meet young people nowadays. It is their primary way that they are actually meeting strangers, right? And with that comes a lot of responsibility, especially early on when we had no idea what was going on with COVID. Not we, but just society at large. And so we really felt like we had the moral obligation to make sure our users understood the risk that they were taking if they decided to, in the case that they met somebody and they decided to interact with them. And so we did a couple of things. So across our entire portfolio, we really leaned hard into video dating, right? So basically Zoom for dates, right? And across the entire portfolio, each kind of brand adopted that technology in a different way. Match very, very quickly launched a one-to-one video dating product. We had one of our brands called Plenty of Fish. They actually increased the rollout of a live streaming product, right? So the ability for people to live stream broadcast their lives to multiple people. A lot of our brands actually did a lot of things around profile badging. So for example, Ship and I believe Hinge which is one of our fastest growing products right now. For Ship and Hinge, we actually created a date from home badge. So basically a badge that said, hey, I'm committed to dating from home, right? And dating from home obviously means utilizing video technology. One of the things that my team is working on right now with Ship, which we're super excited about, is our version of video, like how will we use video dating or video technology? And so we're about to roll this out. It probably will release sometime this week in a test. We're actually creating what we're calling a Ship party. So in real time, you can actually invite a group of your friends to get onto the app together and have a live swiping session. And if you've ever seen young people who are single sit at a bar or a coffee shop or in somebody's living room, they're passing the phone around already. Well, they can't do that right now. And so this is the technology-enabled version of that.
Yeah, and I'm always kind of interested in like those, kind of like that personal side of like balancing, your business has an effect on people, and so I'm always kind of curious on like the personal side of that. And so Merrilee, kind of obviously you guys did not have to go into production of hand sanitizer, and I'm not super familiar with kind of all how that works. I believe Texas was giving like a tax break for some of the production, but I guess like as a leader, like what kind of made you decide like this is something that you wanted to be involved in?
Oh, can you hear me? Yeah, you can? Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure because we were getting such feedback on the other side. We were allowed by the TTB, the Alcohol, Tobacco, Tax and Trade Bureau, to create hand sanitizer, but what they didn't tell us was that if we made it, we would be taxed at high proof alcohol rates, which was exorbitant. So even if we could sell hand sanitizer for $13 a bottle, it would cost us $15 a bottle in tax to the federal government, which didn't make any economic sense because not only were we throwing away our labor, we were throwing away our cash. So then all of a sudden they had an emergency change in their ruling that all distilleries could make hand sanitizer free of tax, as long as we made it so that it wasn't drinkable alcohol. So we had to add hydrogen peroxide and some other things, glycerin and things like that to the hand sanitizer. But we donated our bottles, we donated labels, we donated all the products. It probably cost me $500,000 in terms of raw materials, in terms of donations. We did get people that wanted to buy everything we made, and then they wanted to upsell that to the public. And we said no, because it was a public service. So we just denied that. Yeah, so I mean, it was something different that we weren't used to doing, but it was something that I felt it was a necessary thing to do. In addition, we didn't know if we were going to be a necessary business. And if you're making hand sanitizer, you sure as hell are a necessary business, right? So we thought at least that would save us from that standpoint. While we're making hand sanitizer, we can also make our other products. Luckily for us, people pantry loaded, and then the to-go items started ramping up. So like when you go to a Mexican place or a pizza place or things like that for food, you're getting to-go drinks, alcohol possibly. And we have single serve, ready to drink cocktails already made that are no fuss. I mean, you basically just grab and go. So we're starting to see a lot more of that. What really took a hit was the on-premise business, like the theaters, the bars and restaurants. So really what's picking up is quick serve restaurants like Chipotle or Taco Bell or Wingstop. Those kinds of things are picking up, and they're offering to-go offers with that. But places like where we were selling at Chuck E. Cheese, for all the moms that were watching their kids bounce in the bounce house, that's no longer an option until they reopen. Same thing with Topgolf, places like that, where people gather. So we're just going along with the flow and doing what people do. And Andy, I think it's great that you guys are doing more of an interactive dating thing. I think I keep saying Zoom in the bedroom, but I that bad?
Yeah, and like I did want to kind of talk about some of the trends that you kind of see moving forward. And Merrilee, you were kind of talking about kind of some of the ups and downs in different like areas that you guys do business. And I guess like kind of looking ahead, like where do you kind of see trends in the market that you work in? And are there any like changes, you know, and maybe like the way that you operate your manufacturing or anything that you think will be permanent kind of moving forward, or at least long lasting?
I think it's hard to have a crystal ball and know what's going to happen in the future. However, there are some good practices, best practices like hand washing, like, you know, great manufacturing techniques that we have to use, you know, like plexiglass dividers and more social distancing, more washing, just keeping things super tidy. But in terms of trends on the marketplace, I see more to-go stuff. People like this convenience. They like to entertain at home more. Sporting events, so all of our arenas and things like that we sponsored, baseball games, things like that, that stuff is probably not going to be anymore. So people are going to watch from the privacy of their homes, but they're going to get their to-go products, their alcoholic beverages, because we're essential. You got to have.
Yeah, I mean,
it's more
yeah,
drinking at home.
You got to keep going with normal, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, and then the other thing is our sales team, you know, they used to fly everywhere all the time. They were on a plane. They were in the office. They were on a plane, you know, just constant, boom, boom, boom. Just Zoom has, and Teams and all of these meeting things are a great way to communicate, and it's cost efficient, you know. So I think we'll retain that, and we're building out our Zoom rooms and conference rooms so that you know we can just do more of that. And have face-to-face instead of getting on a plane, you know. So yeah, that's about us.
But not Zoom room.
Not a Zoom room, but you know, I mean, we're going to have the election problems. You know, we've got all the Black Lives Matter, the fear from a second wave of coronavirus, and then we're going to have the election hit. You know, so there's plenty of things to worry about. Plenty of fears that people have in their minds, and they're scared, you know. So I think just communication is the main thing, and like Andy's job over there at Match is, you know, just try to keep that communication going and try to make people's lives more fulfilled, you know. So that's all we can do. Keep going, you know, keep living.
Yeah, I mean, you're just kind of trying to find that balance of, you know, kind of the new normal and keeping on going. I think I have heard that Texas is one of the hardest drinking states during the pandemic. I don't know if you guys have noticed that or anything.
I think everybody wants that award, but nobody or everybody, I don't know. It depends on which side of the fence you're on.
Yeah. Well, and kind of bringing it over to you, Andy, I don't know if you guys will be rolling out any awards for that on y'all's apps or anything, but kind of looking at, you know, trends and changes, like looking forward, you know, I used to be a teacher, and the younger generation, the virtual world and the physical world are not separate things. They're kind of becoming just an interconnected reality. And so I guess I'm curious on y'all's end, you know, some of these kind of virtual things that you've been rolling out, like, do you think that this is going to be kind of like the trend of doing things virtually, figuring it out, and then meeting in person? I guess, like, beyond that, what are some other things that you guys have your eyes on?
Yeah, our CEO, her name's Shar, she says this, and I think it really resonates. You know, our category is called online dating, but it's really a misnomer, because you really, up until recently, you don't really date online, right? You meet online and then you go into the real world and you date. And so she used to have this concept that she's called the half date, right? Which is, before you go to that coffee shop, before you grab dinner or do a walk in the park, how can you have a very, very meaningful experience with somebody? And I think we're finally at this tipping point, both from a consumer behavior standpoint, being accelerated by COVID, obviously, and from a technology standpoint, where people are comfortable and willing to have a conversation with a complete stranger that they just met online before they go out. And so we really want to lean into that. And how can we use technology and fantastic user experience design to create like very comfortable experiences where people are willing to do that? And so we're leaning into that. We also think that at the Match Group, we're focused on online dating, but again, this is stuff our CEO says, is she has a teenage daughter who will meet people online, and she will never ever meet them offline, but they will be a friend. And that's going to happen more and more and more, where friendship and connection is going to be completely virtual. And so we think a lot about, especially my team, because we focus a lot on innovation. Like, what does that mean for our products and our technology? Like, yeah, we're the global leader in online dating, but how does that extend into an adjacency? Like, how can we foster other meaningful connections using technology? And the other thing that I think about a lot, and my team thinks about a lot, is, we think about dating through the Western lens. And I think what people forget is the rest of the world is different. And that is especially true in dating, right? Cultures, dating norms, they are so different as you move from country to country. And so online dating is very accepted. It is the primary way that young people are meeting each other in Western cultures. But what does that mean for the rest of the world? And so we think a lot about that. And again, how can we use technology and great user experiences to create the same type of fervor and high usage of our products in other dating cultures?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny you say that. My, I guess cousin-in-law is a word. She's in Pakistan, and they went through a dating service, but it's still an arranged marriage. But they're still using that kind of technology there.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I'm getting the note that we gotta kind of wrap it up so we can get to some of the Q&A here. So kind of going back to kind of a personal level. You're a leader in business, so that you're also a human being. So like, what are some of the things that you've been doing to kind of stay sane and busy during this whole time? And Andy, if you just want to take that, and then we'll end with Merrilee here.
Yeah, I when we first went to move from work from home, there was kind of a burn-in period where like life just felt very chaotic, and I was out of I felt really unbalanced, and I just started developing like new coping mechanisms, new habits. And now the thought of going back to the office is like causing like dissonance in my head. And so because I've developed some like really amazing habits, I think the first thing is working from home has allowed me to spend more time with family. We're not commuting to work, and what do you do at that time? And I've been using that time for three things. One is spending more time with my wife, spending more time on my bicycle, and everybody's spending time on bicycles now. I live near Red Rock Lake over here in East Dallas, and it is like, I've never seen so many bikes going around the lake. And so that is a big, busy. Right. And the other thing is just making sure, because we are so at least physically distanced from the rest of the team, I just spend a lot of my time checking up, doing lots of one-on-ones with not just people who report to me, but people who are just part of my team. And I try to over-index on that.
Yeah. And Merrilee, I think you're calling in from Montana, correct?
No, I'm back in Dallas.
Oh, okay. But I guess, what have you been doing?
Yeah, and Montana's been beautiful. But I work sometimes up there and sometimes down here. I think we have some people on our team that work from home. They were able to work from home, but being a factory, we had the factory floor and all the people in production that had to be here. My job is just to try to smooth it over and make it as comfortable for them as possible and as safe as possible. So that's my primary concern, is just making sure that they're good. As far as for me, it's been day to day. It's the same old day to day routine. I haven't really changed my routine. If anything, it's given me more, I guess, careful concern, just, of the people and their emotions. These are things that we never had to deal with before, is people's actual fear of getting coronavirus, or people's parents, or, how to deal with a sick loved one, when you're quarantined at home. Just all of those things were things that I never had to worry about. I had other things, but now I have one more worry. So I think that's the thing that keeps me up at night, is just making sure that people are safe and that they feel comfortable coming into work, and they don't have this anxiety of, if I come to work, I could get it, or I could give it to somebody, or I could bring it home to my wife and kids. Just trying to make it as safe as possible. It's scary because we have to keep on living, guys. We have to keep on working. We have to keep on making money. We have to feed our families. So, those are things that are very real for my staff too.
Yeah. And that kind of wraps up our panel. Do you guys have maybe like 10, 15 minutes to answer some of the questions we got during this?
Sure.
Awesome. Well, I guess kind of keeping it on that kind of personal business balance, one of the questions we got were you upfront with your team about the challenges that you were facing, and kind of how did you rally them and kind of keep morale high? And I guess, Merrilee, if you want to just continue off of that.
Let's start with that. What I did was, I was driving into work and I just felt this pit in my stomach, and I thought, I need to rally the troops. So I just stopped production, got everybody outside 6 feet apart. And, I just, from the heart, told them, who's scared? Raise your hand, and so I raised my hand. We're all scared. And what are we going to do about it? And how are we going to get through this together? And what's the worst case scenario look like? Could people die? Could people on the team die? What are we going to do? So, we had a choice, and we said we would like to do hand sanitizer. It's for the better good. We would like to keep everybody safe, and so we're going to implement these protocols. And we would like to keep paying you a salary so that your family can stay employed. And to help with that, since your spouse or your mother or whoever you live with might be laid off, we're going to give you a bonus if you stay on and help. We're going to fill your car with gas. We're going to feed you lunch every day. We're going to offer you massages, if you want that. Just whatever we can do to make your life better. So that's kind of where we were, and it was received very well because they were scared. Nothing you can do though.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an odd time, confusing time for many people. And Andy, I guess how have you kind of been, how have you been upfront with your team, and kind of how have you been trying to, keep morale high, especially with remote work? I know a lot of concern is about, productivity and stuff like that.
Yeah, we were fortunate that our business saw a little bit of an impact, but generally our businesses remained healthy and profitable, and we had no issues with solvency or, any of those kinds of things, layoffs, things like that. So that we really didn't, obviously we try to message around the fact that people had security of employment. I think that where we focused more around open communication was more around safety and security, and that's both both physical safety and kind of mental safety, right? Just making sure people knew that the number one thing we were focused on, at least from an employee standpoint, is keeping people safe. And we very quickly, the leadership team really did a good job of engaging across all of our offices, not just Dallas, and putting kind of safety as the number one priority. And again, we're fortunate that we're digital products, so we're able to do that. But that was the focus, and I feel like we over communicated with our employees. We even asked employees we did a survey very early on asking them, like, how much communication do you want? And it was hands down, people wanted it a lot. And so we communicated from the CEO all the way down to frontline managers. And I think, and we then did a survey, like, asking how we were doing. And I think across all of our offices, we were doing very well around that. And then around managing morale, I mean, I think every team has gotten super creative. My team in particular, right now, 5 minutes ago, we started we have a recurring, like, we have a Zoom bridge that just opened during lunch on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. It's kind of like our lunchroom. We think that breaking bread together is one of the most human things in the world. So we literally will have a standing lunch from noon to 1, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And there's no agenda. Just show up. If you're eating, you're not eating, come in and, have a conversation. Yeah. And we're just starting that. We'll see how well it goes. But we have like Netflix watch parties. We have a Slack channel that is all about just sharing ridiculous internet memes. Like, the things that would have happened in the office, we try to recreate digitally. And fortunately, because we spend all of our time in front of computers, instead of doing it in the office, we're just doing it from our home offices.
Yeah, and kind of like on the business side, one of the questions we got was, and I don't know, you can choose how you want to answer this, but how have you kept up with various changes in regulations and policies at the state level? Whether that's SBA, PPP loan guidance, basically, like, how did you keep up with that? And like, what have you kind of learned about how to keep up and implement those kind of things? And Andy, if you want to take that, and we'll kick it over to Merrilee.
Yeah, I think it's much simpler for us than Merrilee, because she has a consumable product and a factory and a production unit. For us, we have an entire, our HR team, our legal team, our facilities team, in every office, they're responsible for really understanding kind of what the situation is on the ground, what the different legal issues, because every state and every city is handling it differently. And so we took a very kind of grounds up approach, let the local teams handle it. And I think across the board, like, we've probably been more conservative, right? So we solve to the lowest common denominator, or the highest common denominator of just being conservative. And so we try to take the risk out for our employees. And again, we are fortunate because we are a digital company and we're able to do it.
Yeah, for me, it was more. For me, it was more, just my network of people that I know. I have my Harvard network. I've got my women's group networks. I've got, our own internal teams. We've got our COVID team. We've got all our bankers that are jumping to help, to give us advice. So we had no shortage of advice there, and a lot of it just took reading the bylaws of things, that they send out every now and then. The SBA would send something out that clarified their ruling and further confused us. So it worked fine.
It's always fun to keep up with government regulation.
Yeah. That's basically how we did it. Just keeping up with the question was how to keep up with all the government regulations. It's not how we did it. Yeah, just communicating.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention real quick, we got a comment here that says, I'd like to thank Merrilee, as I'm the board chair of the MetroCrest Chamber, and our president worked with your team to distribute hand sanitizer to businesses in Carrollton. Thank you so much. We appreciate your work. So clearly y'all are making an impact. It looks like we got time for one more question. So kind of looking at it on like a kind of macro level, let me get this pulled up. In light or like, how do you see the Dallas tech economy and just kind of, small business economy evolving in light of the larger economic recession? And Merrilee, if you want to take that, and then we'll end with you, Andy.
Again, how do I see the Dallas economy?
How do you see the Dallas like small business economy evolving due to like the broader economic recession? Do you think we're maybe in like a better place, or historically, I guess, like, however you want to tackle
I think
that.
Dallas is probably in a better place. I think, you know, with some of the rioting and Black Lives Matter, looting and rioting did hurt some of the small businesses that were downtown primarily. I think that our overall structure is that everybody wants to get back to work and everybody is opening their doors as much as possible. But I think there's going to be some that are just completely DOA, which would be like the sporting teams. I think that, you know, they're going to have to pivot. They're going to have to sell their seats online or on the TV or some other way, because consumers are not going to be sitting in the stands and they're not going to be making their money on popcorn and Coke, you know, so they're going to have to pivot and make their money another way. As far as the restaurants, they've got a long way to go. I think there's still a lot of scared people out there, and sometimes the government feeds fear and don't try to calm fear. I think having more testing available helps, but it also scares people because all of a sudden now we've got more tests that are testing more people and more people are testing positive. In the end, I think that everybody is going to know somebody that got COVID, and, you know, maybe they will have gotten COVID themselves. But the good news is a lot of people can overcome it. It's not the death knell for everybody. And it is just an uncertainty that we're all going to have to deal with from here on out.
Yeah, and Andy, if you maybe want to tackle it more from like kind of the tech perspective, especially with your background, you know, in startups, like how do you see the tech economy kind of evolving in light of the broader recession?
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess I should answer it from a Dallas perspective. You know, there's not. I think that the main concern. Look, I think the Texas economy has a lot of momentum. I mean, we are one of the strongest economies. You know, there are going to be sectors that are going to be hit very hard, and a lot of them, unfortunately, are based in Texas, right? So transportation, you know, the American Airlines, the Southwest Airlines of the world, they're having to, you know, hopefully they rebound faster, but they're having to do a lot of thinking. And all the travel and hospitality that's based in Dallas. And then, of course, energy, like those industries, I think there's no doubt there's going to be impact, right? But I don't think that COVID has structurally changed like what makes Dallas a great place to start a business and be a business and run a business. I think obviously there's going to be a certain level of consumer demand impact, but we'll get through that. And so hopefully a lot of the things that the government, both at the local, state, and federal levels, will help kind of buoy a lot of that. But I mean, unless this becomes very, very protracted, I think Texas is going to bounce back very quickly. I mean, up until recently, and even recently, it's not 100% been, you know, 100% that. I mean, we have not been that impacted, and hopefully that stays the case. And so I'm feeling pretty bullish. I think we've weathered the storm, we flattened the curve, and as long as, you know, we maintain a certain level of discretion and vigilance, I think we're going to rebound very quickly. And again, structurally, I don't think COVID has changed anything that makes, like, what makes Dallas great to start a business or a tech company. I don't think it's changed.
And
yeah,
I've
you know,
seen
you
airlines
keep hearing that.
starting to rebound too. The airlines, we've been flying, so we're back on planes, and I just took a flight from Montana back to Dallas the other day, and it was packed, absolutely packed. So things are opening up, airlines are opening up, but they're not yet serving much online, or on board. So.
I mean, if anything, if Elon Musk's tweet about moving his next factory to Austin is any case, then I hope there will be even more gravity to the state of Texas from a tech standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I got to wrap it up here. I'm sure we could probably talk all day about some of the pivots and changes and things looking ahead. But thank you guys so much, Andy, Chen, Merrilee, Kik. I really appreciate it. It's been a really great conversation. And to all the people who are watching out there online, thank you guys for joining us on your lunch break. We're running virtual events across our Inno network, so I encourage you guys to check those out. I mean, some of the conversation we've had here obviously applies pretty much everywhere. And also be sure to check out ntxinno.com for our upcoming virtual events. And again, thank you guys for your insights and everything like that. If you have any questions, I'm going to drop my email in the chat box below. So for you guys watching still, feel free to put those in there and we'll try to get those answered for you. Lastly, thank you to our founding sponsors, Accenture, BDO, UTD, and our virtual host today, Thomson Reuters. Please make sure to check out those handouts in our handout section. Again, we've got the Small Business Release Center thing. We've got info about both Andy Chen and Merrilee Kick and their businesses. So there's some good stuff in there and how they're helping out local communities. So we'll have a recap of this event live tomorrow on our site and in our newsletter. So again, thank you to everyone. Thank you to our panelists and sponsors. And thank you guys for tuning in. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.